time once again for Community Forum, and we are very lucky to have with us live in the studios this morning Simone Chun. Simone Chun is an international scholar activist. She is an active member of the Korea Peace Network and a steering committee member of the Alliance of Scholars Concerned About Korea. She's the author of In Search of Perpetual Peace in the Korean Peninsula and is currently working on a book, Rays of Hope, Globalization and the Korean Labor Movement. Simone, thank you very much for coming in and spending time with us this morning.
Thanks for inviting me.
So start out, tell us about your organizations, the Korea Peace Network and Alliance of Scholars Concerned About Korea.
Okay, so Korea Peace Network is a fairly new organization. It was formed about 2 years ago, and it is an alliance of concerned civil society groups, individuals working on Korea issues in the United States. Our goals are to share information, organize joint activities of mutual interest, and work together for peace building, human security, and reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula. And KPN calls for a peaceful settlement of the Korean wars through peaceful engagement and sincere dialogue of all concerned governments and civil society groups without any preconditions. And we have had a very active and fruitful activities for the last 2 years. And this year we're going to hold a major conference in June in Washington, D.C., and we are going to focus on the raising awareness on issues concerning Korea. And our primary activity is actually to do more direct campaigning and lobbying of members of Congress in Washington, D.C., and also spread the words throughout the, of course, United States and also the world. And we have another major issue that we have is also specifically to working with the American Friends Service Committee, and currently with the promoting humanitarian engagement with North Korea. And so that is some of the specific goals, and also trying to look at the reunion of separated families. As you know, there are about more than 150,000 Korean Americans who have actually families in North Korea who they haven't been able to see for more than 6 decades, which is a truly is a tragedy. So we also want to see a reunion of those families. Mm-hmm. So some of those are some of the goals that we have, and I hope that in the future, maybe next another opportunity, I could share more information about what we do, and hopefully to also connect with your listeners and the scholars concerned about Korea. This is more of progressive scholars in the United States and the Korea-related issues, and we're trying to also raise awareness about Korea. And so it is very scholars who are very active and also who have more critical, provide critical analysis on Korea.
All right, thank you. So currently, the Trump administration has been talking a lot about taking aggressive action with North Korea, and the corporate media has been failing to, with all their coverage of this, really give us any context of the U.S. history there. And I was hoping you could kind of give us some history and context that's been solely lacking in the coverage so far. So,
I think that there are a couple of things that need to be mentioned. One is that Korea is, with regard to North Korea, I understand especially that there are not a lot of information, or Americans not really informed about North Korea. And the one is that North Korea has very sort of collective memory of the colonization, by Japanese, which lasted 4 decades, and also followed by the 3 years of a Korean War, which never ended. And also since the armistice of 1953, and also now, North Korea is probably one of the very, very, very few countries. In fact, if it's not the only nation that has received the threat of one of the most powerful countries on earth, that will be the United States, including even since 1950s, the United States introduced various type of nuclear weapons in the South. So that is a context. So when you look at North Korea, usually the way the corporate media present it, this is, the evil monster, irrational, crazy regime with and also with the crazy leader, and with this, nuclear capability. And I think that is the some of the sort of image that false image or dangerous image that Americans receive. So I think we should sort of. I think it's very important to know the history. Now, so the number one history is probably, as a counter this notion that, about the Korea itself. And, Trump said that made such controversy recently that, according to Xi Jinping, right, the conversation they had with Xi Jinping, that why Korea used to be part of, China. So which basically, was raised a big sort of criticism, contrary to what President Trump's statement. Korea has been a sort of a sovereign, independent nation for more than 5,000 years, and it has its own its ancient national culture. In fact, achieved nationality in the 608, and then have been sovereign except during the period of Japanese colonization, basically that is 1910 through 1945, and so. And so when earlier I mentioned about the Korean nation, and also especially North Korea having the sort of the memory of brutal colonization by Japanese for 36 years. I'm just giving you the sort of image. One most powerful example will be the 200,000 Korean girls, mostly called as comfort women, right? There's military sex slaves for the Japanese, at the time, imperial force. Again, I emphasize that when we call comfort women, but it was actually mostly, they weren't even adults. They were young girls who were forced to serve as sex slaves for the Japanese army. And as you know, Japan was at the time expanded to, Manchuria and also other parts of Asia. And these girls were basically, stationed in those different parts of Japanese army. And imagine being raped, 15, 20 times a day, and never able to, basically come home. So that is the sort of the kind of one example that you can show how brutal the colonization, right, of 36 years of colonization was. And to give you some personal background, that I was, as you can see that I'm from Korea. I was born there. I had, I grew up and I had all my education there. So I used to call, I used to ask my mom, so it was like, because my parents were from that generation. So she lived through Japanese culture, and she went to, when she was going to school, she couldn't even speak Korean, right? So, and I once, like later, I asked Mom, can you tell me about what was it like, And she wouldn't even tell. She wouldn't want to tell either colonization or war. I think it was too, hard. And the one thing that she said was that, I remember those, the Japanese, police that were running around the country area and kind of, like recruiting girls, and they didn't know what it was. And obviously she was lucky not to be, forced to go there. So what happened was my mom's family, luckily my grandparents had the lands and properties, and also he was a scholar, so he was educated. My mom was educated. She wasn't. So the story is that those girls who were the poorest and who didn't have any education, heard that there's job opportunity available, so found out there was basically sex slaves. So that is one the example that shows that, again, the brutality of the colonization. And then the next segment is about the war itself, which Korean War, which never ended, as you know, right? And I think the other day I had actually a stranger, an American who I met in in the shopping mall, and I saw him. He didn't have He didn't have the right arm. So it's like, and I found out actually he lost his arm during Korean War. And then, so we got into it, and then he and I agreed, he said, well, so it's forgotten war, Korean War, Americans, that the kind of war that they don't want to talk about it. So what is it? I think we should talk about it. And basically 30% of Koreans were either killed or, the injured. And there was about the entire, especially northern part, the devastation was so huge, as you call it. And there's one point that the Americans bombed so much, so heavily, there's nothing even, right? That there's nothing even to bomb. And there was also allegations of germ affair, and also all kinds of the very unthinkable sort of destruction. So you can imagine, as far as North Korea concerned, again going back to the why they kept this sort of very militant strategy. In a way, for some, North Korea think why America has been sort of the kind of enemy. They, I guess they still have to reckon with, right? And so the only memory I think they have is basically this sort of the memory of a brutal colonization and the war, and state sort of the regime itself. I'm not sort of condoning the North Korean regime, right? But the regime itself used this sort of this image, right? These memories. Right? So I think that for us, I think we have to create, especially for Americans and also Korean American, we have to create new memory. All right, you can't just stuck in the past, right? But in order to create new memory, you also have to know the history. So that is the context, and I think that I think earlier you talked about about again the North Korea's the way corporate image that North Korea is presented. Well, that's not entirely true, though. On the other hand, also there's another image where North Korea is, unlike what some people think, it is actually very North Korea is, very it's predictable. What that is, North Korea will say, for instance, let's say, if United States wanted to engage, right, or a powerful country want to engage, North Korea will do respond. So, for instance, let's say, no matter what what people say about Bill Clinton, but actually 1994, right? Bill Clinton for that 8 years, 1994 2002, actually President Bill Clinton did sort of in the aftermath of the first nuclear crisis, he did sort of agreed with North Korea and managed to freeze the plutonium production for 8 years, right? And North Korea did that. And but what happened? And also there was they also worked out a deal to buy all of North Korea's medium and long range missiles, right? Which we know there's a big issues. So, but that was basically halted as when George Bush came. I said North Korea is part of Axis evil, right? So again, I think that North Korea, if you look at it, it's the fourth largest army in the world. And it has 200,000 very highly trained special forces and 10,000 artillery pieces, all mounted in the can be target. So I think that we should really this is time to, with the new administration, not only in the United States, and also it's going to have a new administration in Korea. We should really try to come up with a new strategy. Engagement, and also maybe the upgrading that what we call the previous policy, sunshine policy, that the former President Kim Dae-jung and also to some extent Roh Moo-hyun in Korea has implemented. And so this is I think that the goal of our organization, and also I hope that a lot of Americans should help sort of pay attention to.
Well, early in fact, I think even while he was still running for president, Trump had said he was, I believe, willing to talk to North Korea. And now, since he's become president, that hasn't gelled at all. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, he in fact said that actually, I thought that, during his campaign, he said that he spoke hamburger diplomacy, right? He said he would be willing to sit down and with the Kim Jong-un and hamburger. I thought actually that was a pretty, good. I think what happened was that, and then there was sort of a period of sort of called it reviewing, North Korea policy, right? So what Trump administration going to do with North Korea, and what I'm hearing is that although there has been a lot of sort of hardline talk from the Trump administration, I do not completely exclude the possibility of Trump administration doing some kind of engagement, shifting toward engagement policy, and that is where I think I might be it will depend on the kind of public opinion, and also the kind of activities that citizens can do. So, and of course, like media such as you, right, and providing right information, and and so without really, this is time really citizens should engage in and raising awareness, and I think we do have a power, to impact. Yeah.
So obviously, South Korea has a big say in what the U.S. could potentially do. What has been the stance of South Korea's elected officials? I know that there was just an impeachment, wasn't there, of the
yeah.
South Korean president? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Basically, the President Park Geun-hye, who was elected 2012, and she was impeached, and as a result of massive citizens, what they call the candlelight protest or candlelight revolution, which means that basically 1 out of 3 Koreans participated in this candlelight pro-democracy movement for more than 250 days. So every Saturday there was a rally at the Seoul's Gwanghwamun Plaza, and what was the issue? Basically, this is, you have to look at the bigger context. That is South Korea under the very right wing government, who that has also in the very sort of process of sort of very active progressive neoliberal economic reform, where so basically more power was given to the corporations. Especially in the case of Korea, there is a very monopolistic business conglomerates called Jebel. And so what happened is that at the certain stage of that sort of capitalist development, what you have here is that as a big governments, corporation taking more from the people and also economy, there's a lot of room for corruption. So what happened, a lot of people don't point out this, but the impeachment Park Geun-hye has to do with the crisis within this current capitalist system, where instead of really fair market economy, what you have is basically the game of corruption. So most specifically, her charge was that she had an old friend, a very close friend, who was basically a woman who was not even qualified to run anything, and without any official position, basically looks like had a sort of shadow, cabinet, right? Run everything, and even she was apparently she was taking, there was all the Jebels were donating money for this sort of shadow foundation they created, and the millions of dollars, and so it was she had the charges of bribery and all kinds of irregularities. So she has been impeached, and she's right now in the she's in the custody. She will be on a trial for a month. Most likely she will be imprisoned. She will be and so the big issue is that this. So the important one that we have to remember is that no matter what you say, to me the beacon of all that, the best part of this whole issue is that Korea is democracy. South Korea, can you imagine? This is literally you are technically, the Korean peninsula is technically at war, right? And in there you have actually, to me, I was the most vibrant, dynamic, active democracy in the world. So I think within less than 30 years, South Korea especially, managed to produce such a democracy, and I think that that has been demonstrated during the candlelight revolutions. And so May 9th we're going to have election, new president, and most likely I think according to the polls, most likely it will be Moon Jae-in, who is the who served actually the chief of staff of the previous former President Roh Moo-hyun, and he was a human rights lawyer. And he did a run in 2012, but he lost to President Park. Unlike to the media present, he's not really progressive. He's sort of center, I would say, centrist. He's a decent man. In a way, it's somewhat like a little bit Obama. You know, he's a good man. He's not at all. You know, some people worry that he's sort of, you know, like too critical of the U.S. No, he's not. He's pro-U.S. and he's centrist. He's a decent man. So most likely he will be elected to president. And with regard to North Korea policy, he has already stated very clearly that he was going to resume the engagement policy. And he'll also immediately expand the what do you call the Kaesong Industrial Park, which is basically the joint economic venture between North and South Korea that had been going for more than 15 years. Which actually this impeached President Park Geun-hye just shut it down a year ago. And so Moon Jae-in, the most likely to be next president of Korea, Moon Jae-in said he will immediately start. In fact, he said he will even expand. So, more sort of economic, like economic joint South and North economic ventures like that. Moon Jae-in also said that he will also, I think that the next probable question you might have is that the SAD deployment, terminal high altitude area defense missile system that South Korea is basically U.S. and South Korea agreed to deploy this year. And going back to our probably new president Moon Jae-in, he said that although he's somewhat a little bit vague, but he said he will also try to negotiate with the United States and also China, and try to address this issue as well. Yeah.
So that's the THAAD missile system that the U.S. is putting in there for. Mm-hmm. Is it just to theoretically protect South Korea, or is it like a more regional missile system that the U.S. is attempting to bring in there?
I think this is basically since President George Bush unilaterally took United States out of the ABM treaty, so now developing this so-called missile system. So it is global. I think it's a global phenomenon U.S. is trying to do. So Japan there is already two SAT radar in Japan. So it has nothing really, in my view, it has nothing to do with doing anything with North Korea, because North Korea is both of the short range missiles. You cannot. This SAT system is to intercept high missiles that at a high altitude. It is mostly almost all critics point out that this is about the U.S. sort of trying to counter or even providing getting surveillance of China. So this is basically nutshell. It is between U.S. and China, and also Russia is a global power struggle, and right now, nevertheless. As you know, there have been strong local oppositions, right? Koreans, nations, no matter what you say, what you think, it has been I think on the earlier point that about how Korea has been able to maintain sovereignty, it has always has a very strong history, culture, and memory of citizens' resistance to injustice. And the locals in Songju, where Songju and Gimcheon, where the SAT is being deployed, have been very fierce. Right, fiercely opposing it, and in fact, I have my family has orchard very near Songju and Gimcheon, the deployment SAT, and in fact, I actually have written, made my statement, and that this is basically destroying the people's livelihood, and the location of SAT will be basically near to hundreds of thousands of citizens, like communities. Where they work, at hospitals, kindergartens, and schools, and so it is. And also, there's environmental destruction will be huge, and so hopefully, with the powerful Korea's candlelight democracy and also new administration, and we hope that the SAT will be either SAT deployment should be stopped, or at least start with going through some kind of review or democratic processes.
We only have a few minutes left. Another example of Korean resistance to outside forces. South Korea has a phenomenally strong labor movement. In fact, the U.S. labor movement pales in comparison to the activities of South Korea.
Yes, in fact, I think that we have right now for this week and also next week, we have amazing Korean labor activists who are touring Seattle, Los Angeles, Berkeley, and they have a South Korean labor movement. Although the rate of union is still, it's 10%, but South Korea, if you look at it, has one of the most active and also courageous labor movements, and they have been in fact, I think the central agent that actually pushing for democracy. Even before Korea was democratized, let's say 1987, it was interestingly those factory workers, right? Those workers who never even had the education or, they actually in fact had the unions and the factory level, and also. So my take is actually the Korea's democracy movement is actually it has stemmed from those organizations as a labor movements, and unionized or even the ordinary workers. So right now, actually, in fact, even the candlelight movement, candlelight democracy that you're talking about, revolution, is actually it initiated from the president of Korean Confederation Trade Union, KCTU, right? Han Sang-kyun, who is right now actually in jail, unfortunately. He did. There was a massive, protest. So that was year before the candlelight revolution. And so what I would think is that a lot of Americans look at why, like we have here Occupy Wall Street on whatnot. How come we can never have the kind of process that Korea has? So there is the piece of the answer to the puzzle. That is Korea. It has the citizens, massive organization among citizens, but also it is a very organized worker unions that also behind supporting becoming buttress of the citizen movement.
All right. Well, with that, we are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming in and spending time with us this morning.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.